Today we're going to look at 3 accessories you can add to one of my favorite modifiers, the beauty dish. Hey everybody, Lindsay Adler here, and as you may know, a beauty dish is a staple of many studio photographers' kits. It's flattering and it's versatile. It's great for portraits, it's beauty, fashion, all of these things. Now what a beauty dish does is create a soft and flattering quality of light that is smooth on the skin, but it has a little bit more pop and contrast than you get from a softbox. Now another thing that makes this modifier great is that there are several accessories you can add to change the light. It allows you to have more control, to soften the highlights, or even add a little bit of extra punch. If you already have a beauty dish in your kit, you may consider grabbing these 3 additions because you can get even more out of a tool that you already own. Now, by the way, before we dive in, if you are in love with studio lighting, or maybe you are just starting to fall in love with studio lighting, you may want to check out the incredibly in-depth course I have on this topic. I've got lessons dedicated to modifiers, grids, quality of light, shaping light, and much more. I'm a Canon explorer of light, and in this video series, I do a whole lot of exploring and sharing with light, and it is called Master Studio Lighting. So check that out in the links below. Okay, with that, let's take a look at these 3 beauty dish accessories: the grid, the sock, and the frosted glass plate. The first accessory for a beauty dish is something called a sock. Basically, a sock is a piece of diffusion material that can fit over the front of the beauty dish. It's the same sort of thing as you would see in the front of a softbox, or if you had an umbrella with diffusion. And the idea is that you are softening the light. You are smoothing out specular highlights. Now, one of the things I do want you to notice between the 2 socks that I'm holding here is that they come in different thicknesses. Now, most brands will just have a single sock for their beauty dish, but if you do a little research, some of them will be thinner, some will be thicker, and the difference will be, well, how much light do they cut and how much do they smooth the light? So if you are using a relatively thin sock, what it's going to do is just smooth out some of the brightest specular highlights, but overall keep the punchiness of a beauty dish. But when you start moving in towards a thicker sock, where it's more of like a one-stop diffusion, not only does it cut down on the specular highlights, but it softens the light overall, moving it more in the direction of the light that you would get from a softbox. So I'm going to take a shot with this white beauty dish. Right now it's the white beauty dish with the white plate inside, so a standard beauty dish. We're going to take a shot, and then I'm going to add the diffusion so you can see the difference. Okay, so you can see the quality of light from a beauty dish with no modification. It's soft, it's smooth. You'll notice the highlights aren't that specular, and the shadows aren't super defined. It's nice in between. It's soft, but it still has a little bit of pop, a little bit of contrast. It is a little bit more definition than you would get, for example, from an octabox. Okay, so now we're going to add the diffusion. So this was just a little bit of diffusion, and where you can tell the difference is just in the brightest highlights. It's just a teeny bit smoother. Also, because the light has spread out a little bit, it's bounced around the beauty dish, the exposure gets a tiny bit brighter. All right, now what I'm going to do is just grab the thicker diffusion and show you the difference there as well. Now that we've added the thicker diffusion, the difference is subtle. The highlights, the specular highlights on the forehead, are a little bit smoother. And so the reason that it's not that noticeable is because she has a very light skin tone. And so bright highlights against already light skin tone isn't that noticeable. There isn't much of a difference. Where I find that I really see the benefits of a sock is when I'm photographing darker skin tones. That's because the highlights create more contrast against a dark skin. So when you smooth them more, you'll be able to see it more. One other thing I want you to notice, if you take a look at the original shot with no modification compared to the heavy diffusion, is that the background is more even. It's more smooth. How a beauty dish works is that there is a sweet spot of light in the center of the beauty dish. And then there's like a little bit of a ring of harder light around the edges. And so on the face, it's going to be beautiful and soft, but some of the edges are going to get that spilled light. And you can see that in the original shot on the background. It is not completely even throughout the modifier. Once we add a piece of diffusion, now the light is even. While socks are relatively inexpensive, there are actually other solutions. You can add diffusion onto the front of a beauty dish without having to buy a specialty sock in the form of diffusion filters. You can get them in small pieces or in larger rolls. This material is a favorite of product photographers because it gives them control over soft light as well as gradients of light. My recommendation is a sock because it's more portable, it's easier to attach, but there are other solutions to achieve a similar adjustment to the quality of light. The next accessory we're going to add to the beauty dish is probably my favorite, and it is called a grid. Now grids, they make them for a variety of different modifiers. You can add grids to soft boxes, strip soft boxes, but the beauty dish, you really see a dramatic result. A grid controls the spill and spread of light, and it does so in all directions, from side to side, up and down, and front and back. So what I mean by that is if you were photographing someone with a beauty dish head to toe and you add a grid, well, it's going to shrink the area of illumination, maybe just to light around the head and shoulders. But the other thing that you'll notice is when you add a grid, less light will reach the background. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, very often, I don't want to evenly light the body with one modifier. Instead, I want the light on the face to be maybe a little more dramatic or a little brighter, and I want a separate light for the body. Or maybe I don't want so much light flat lit across the background. I want to light the face in one way and then add another spotlight on the background. So a grid gives you that control. So I'm going to take a shot without a grid, and then we're going to add one so you can see just how dramatic of a difference it makes. You can really see how dramatic of a difference the grid makes to this shot. So for example, in the close-up, now the background is falling almost a complete shadow. But you can really see the difference in the wider shot. Not only is the light not hitting the ground anymore, but it's also falling darker to the sides and to the background. And so you can see how this gives you a whole lot of control. Now, do I think that this shot is correct with just this one beauty dish with a grid? Probably not. I would probably add additional lights for definition and separation, but that's the point, is now I have the control to do so. And by the way, if you're a little bit more advanced, you know that grids typically come in different sizes. The standard rule is the smaller the number of the grid, the smaller the area it lights. Very often, beauty dish grids are the 25 or 30 degree, and most brands just make one size, like 1 degree grid. So if you're looking around for different sizes, for different amounts of concentration, it's not you. The brand probably just makes one grid. Our last accessory is a frosted glass plate that's going to go into the beauty dish. Now, so far, we have only seen images shot with a white beauty dish and a white plate. And so you can see what the plate looks like here, but this is a silver beauty dish. And so our accessory is going to change the quality of light just a little bit. Now, in a white beauty dish, if you switch out the white center plate, the light becomes just a little bit poppier, just a little brighter, just a little bit more specular. And it makes sense because the glass plate is going to allow a little bit more light to pass through. Now, when it comes to a silver beauty dish has a very defined sweet spot of light. There's kind of this glowing area in the center. By switching out the plate for a frosted glass, it actually makes it a little bit smoother and that sweet spot not quite as defined. And so there's no right or wrong, but it depends on aesthetically what you're looking for. So we're going to switch out and we're going to begin with the white plate in the white beauty dish, then switch over to the glass plate, then we'll switch over to silver, show you the white, and then the frosted glass. All right, so you can see the comparison of the two images side by side. The first one is with the white beauty dish and the white plate, and then the second one is the white beauty dish again, but this time with the clear frosted plate. With the frosted glass, you'll notice that the image is a little bit brighter. The highlights are a little bit more specular, and overall, the image is just a little bit punchier. And that's because some of the light from the head is passing through the glass directly onto the subject. Okay, so we're going to switch over and look at the same thing with the silver beauty dish. All right, so we switched out to the silver beauty dish. Now, the difference between silver and white is that the silver is a little bit higher contrast. It's a little bit more specular. It has a brighter, sweet center spot. And by the way, if you check a link in the description below, I actually have a comparison side by side of a silver versus a white beauty dish and why I use each tool. All right, so let's take a shot of just the silver with the white center plate. You can see that this has a lot more contrast and a lot more definition than the white beauty dish. But we want to make one variation, and so we're going to add the frosted plate. All right, so let's compare these two images. In the first image with the silver beauty dish and the white plate, you'll notice that there's a concentration of light on the face. It's brighter on the face, has more contrast, and then it's a little bit darker on the shoulders and the chest. Then we added the frosted plate. Now you'll notice that the face and the chest are more evenly lit. And this is because adding the frosted plate creates a more even gradient. Rather than it being a sweet spot in the center and then a little bit darker on the edges, everything has a more even illumination. So when might you use a frosted plate? With a white beauty dish if you want a little bit more punch, and with a silver beauty dish if you want a little bit more even illumination. All right, so you can see that we have 3 accessories that we can add to our beauty dish. We can add a grid, we can add a sock, we can add a frosted plate, or we can mix them together. What's great about this is it's likely a tool that you already have, and so you can mix and match these accessories. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead into a fun creative shoot with my model. And it's not about which tool that I add, but instead what tool is aesthetically pleasing for the look that I'm trying to achieve. All right, so let's go shoot. As you can see, a beauty dish is more than just a beauty dish. Of course, you can choose between silver and white, but then you can modify it even more. A grid allows you to control the spread of light. A sock smooths the light, softens it. And then finally, that frosted glass plate, well, this plate can add a little bit more punch to your white beauty dish, or it creates a smoother gradient of light with silver. In other words, you can take the same modifier that you already own, but give it even more control and variation. So if you'd like to see the gear that I talked about in this video, be sure to check the links in the description below, and of course visit Adorama.com. And hopefully you've enjoyed this video, so be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time, guys.